remember back in the day when Tumblr was a thing. For people that don't know what Tumblr is, Tumblr used to be basically a form of social media, kind of like Instagram, but it wasn't like the pictures we see now. It was like one of the things that they used to have on Tumblr was quotes. And I remember years ago, I found a quote, like I saw a quote, and this quote has literally stuck with me since then. And this was over 10 years ago, because Tumblr died out like a decade ago. But the quote actually came up the other day in a conversation I was having with this friend of mine. And her reaction to the quote was like, oh wow, like this is really, this is really profound, this is really interesting. And she was really engaging and understanding the quote. And it got me thinking, like, I want to share this quote with you. When I brought this series back, I wanted to share the quote with you and talk about the quote. The quote is, perfection is unattainable. But if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. When people speak about the law of attraction, when people speak about vibrating on a frequency, to a lot of people it sounds like woo, right? It sounds like fake, it sounds like fairy tale, it sounds like an appeal to magic. But I think this quote is actually quite profound, because the quote is not a personification, but more of an illustration of the law of attraction. What the law of attraction basically states is, when you do certain things, let's say your goal is to be successful, and you're doing certain things that generate success. The end goal of these things that you're doing is success. You're on the path to success, right? It's very similar when you're on the path of perfection. Perfection is unattainable, so in a lifetime, you're not going to be perfect at any one thing. But in you being on that path to perfection, you're vibrating on that frequency of perfection. If you don't catch perfection, you can catch something excellent. The excellency you catch is on the road of that perfection. The excellency can't be on the road of indiscipline. It can't be on the road of bad habits. It can't be on the road of bad decisions. You can't catch excellence there, because excellence only exists on this road. The law of attraction and vibrating on the same frequency as your goals. They're literally just that. You want to be in shape, for example, so you work out. If, for example, you wanted to bulk, and bulking in bodybuilding is basically you put on a lot of size in order to build muscle, but you're putting on weight. It's quite the opposite. If you want to lose weight, you would do certain things. You would be on path A. And if you wanted to gain weight, you would quite literally do the opposite of what you're doing to lose weight. And then it would flip your path, right? But at the end of the day, both of these paths are generated by our decisions that we make on a daily basis. Our habits. In order to make the right choices, it requires a lot of discipline. And discipline is honestly one of the hardest things to do. Work, hard work. It's actually not that difficult when you think about it. There are a lot of really difficult things in life that in order to achieve, you need the most important ingredient, and that ingredient is consistency. But consistency, unfortunately, requires discipline, and that is the biggest problem we have as humans. Discipline is quite literally the polar opposite of instant gratification. Literally. And instant gratification is quite literally the best feeling as a human being. One of the best feelings as a human being. Obviously in that moment, because outside of the moment, once the instant gratification is gone, you're like, damn. Let's say you have a chocolate cake and you know you shouldn't have it. While you're having it, it's amazing. But after you finish it, the regret is crazy. There's a lot of things that you do, right? But the complete opposite of instant gratification is discipline. The chocolate bar, the broccoli, the cake, the cauliflower, the pizza, the salad. They're complete opposites. One gives you instant gratification and the other requires discipline to gratify you in the long term. I always think that it doesn't really make much sense when you're trying to solve a problem. You need to solve the root of the problem, right? There's no point trying to solve this problem and solving the roots of this problem, because if they're mutually exclusive, it won't really work. That being said, I feel like discipline is the biggest problem for us as humans in achieving our goals. Waking up early, doing the right things every day, eating right, being good by people even when you don't feel like it, even when people aren't good to you. Working, not procrastinating, but working. All of these things require discipline. So I guess my first message tonight is I'm urging you guys to work on your discipline. And the best way to be disciplined is to form a habit, to form a good habit. And yes, habit forming is definitely painful. There is a painful process before the beauty. When I get my hair braided, it hurts. Sometimes my head is really tight for 2 days after I braid my hair. And my sister and my mom, they always tell me, there's pain in beauty. In order for you to look really nice, in order for you to have this really nice design in your hair, a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of pain. And that's quite true with discipline, building healthy habits, waking up early, eating the right stuff, working hard, stopping yourself from procrastinating when you find yourself procrastinating. These things are very difficult in the moment, but in every single moment, what I urge you to do is make it a thing. Think about it. Be very, very present. Be very, very intentional with your actions, intentional with your thoughts. That way, it'll be a lot easier to develop this habit, the good habits, which will lead to your discipline. I think in maybe one of my previous videos in this series, I've spoken about how subjective value is. And in case maybe you missed that video or you need a refresher on what I mean by that when I say that, just imagine you got something for free. Now, this thing, you need it. It does have value to you, but you just got it for free. Now imagine that same thing you worked 40 hours a week for, sometimes 50, 60 hours a week, saving up for this really valuable, important thing. The exact same item would be treated completely polar opposites, completely different by the same person, you. The value that you installed into the exact same thing. I got one water bottle and I got 2 water bottles, the exact same water bottle. If this water bottle I got for free, I was walking down the road and someone just gave me this water bottle, I would treat it completely different to if I paid for this water bottle. And let's say I paid a $5. Let's say there was no water for a mile and I was really thirsty, so I was like, water doesn't cost a $5, but this is like this water does, because there's no water and I'm very thirsty, so I paid a fiver. The amount of nurturing and the amount I would cherish this water over this water. Look at these bottles. Exactly the same contents, the same 500 milliliters, but I would treat one completely different to the other. And that's the subjective nature of value. We put in value. A lot of these things I have on my table, a lot of these things I own. I'm looking around my room right now. These things are objects that don't even move. They don't do much, but I have value in them. I have a phone right here. I have another phone right here. I have headphones right here. I have a hard drive right here. I have a couple fragrances right here. I've got a microphone sitting here. I got some lights sitting here. In all of these different things, me set out my own value hierarchy with my own stuff. Everything in my life, in my own consciousness, my first person consciousness, I set out the value. Someone might come into my room, my mom, my sister, they might come into my room and be like, yo, what is this on your table? This hard drive? Yeah, what? I don't need this, throw it away. But to me, this hard drive is one of the most valuable things I own. It's the most subjective thing. That being said, since we know that to be completely true, right? In your life right now, there are certain things that happen, certain bad things, hopefully some great things too, to go along with the bad. And I do feel like you need both, like both are required. I've spoken about that in a previous video too. But there's certain things that you should give your energy to in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. And that all breaks down to a day, right? Because 365 days makes a year. 52 weeks makes a year, but there's 7 days in a week and there's 1 day in, do you see what I'm saying? So every single day is the first battle. In every single day, you only have a finite amount of energy to give that day, which means your energy levels are like this. You can only attribute this amount of energy for certain things, this amount of energy for certain things, maybe a small amount of energy for this, maybe a small amount of energy for this. This is what I'm saying though. If you find yourself being overwhelmed in your day, if you find yourself being stressed out in your day, what I want you to focus on is changing the hierarchy, changing the balances, messing with your macros. You know, in bodybuilding, there's a thing called macronutrients, fats, carbohydrates, and protein, right? And people have splits. Some people do 30% protein, 30%, 40% protein, 40% fat, 30% carbs. Some people do 40% carbs, 40% protein, 30% fats. But it's just the adjustment of the same 100% of their macros. If you ever find yourself being overwhelmed when you're finishing your day, you're like, damn, I have no energy left. It feels like I've been, wasteful with my energy. It feels like I'm drained. What I want you to focus on doing, like I said in the last part, you need to be conscious. You need to be intentional with what you're doing. Bro, you need to rebalance your energies. Don't put so much energy in things that you don't value as much, and put most of your energy into the things that you value. Don't let anyone else create a value system in your life, because their value system won't work in yours. Very similar to how I talked about the hard drive. To me, it's valuable. To my mom, to my sister, to my dad, it's not. You kind of have to create your own reality in a way. I'm not talking about, be delusional and be strange, but your reality, your first person perception is the most important thing to you, right? You must protect that with because when you don't, it starts to damage your life. Quite literally, it damages you. It can't really damage this person, can't really damage this person. It might damage your loved ones, because when you deteriorate, your loved ones kind of deteriorate too, because that's the relationship that you have with them. If you care about your loved ones, you'd first care about yourself. This is why people love to say that before you love someone else, you have to love yourself. It's a fact, because the relationship you have with someone else is very dependent on the relationship you have with yourself, right? And if you realize that, then you realize that you have to love yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You are first. In your life, you are first. There's a reason without mirrors, without reflections, you can't see yourself. You're literally the first person FPS, first person shooter. Balance out your energy in order to create an efficient day. Then do it again and create another efficient day. Then do it again and create another efficient day. Those days will turn into weeks, and those weeks will turn into months. What happens then is those days turns into habits, and it will also help with your discipline. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is something called the laws of diminishing returns. Everything in this video kind of has a theme, and they all follow the same theme, right? The law of diminishing returns. A perfect analogy for this. Let's say you have a hose, a water hose, like it's a hose and then it sprays out water. There gets to a point where, let's say you're holding the hose like these. Do I have anything like a hose in this bitch? Okay. Let's say you're holding the hose like this, right? It gets to a point that the water, depending on how powerful it is, will reach a certain destination, right? And then you tilt it up a bit, and maybe it reaches a little bit further, and then you tilt it up a bit, and then maybe it reaches a little bit further, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just stagnant. And then you'd find that the more you tilt it, in fact, the water starts to rescend. It starts to recede. The more you tilt it, until the point where you've tilted it 90 degrees and the water is not going anywhere. It's in fact falling onto itself. I remember watching an Elliot Hulse video, and he really explained that really well, and that analogy stuck with me for years. But the law of diminishing returns is literally exactly that example I just showed you. At any point when you're doing something, there comes a point where the return on your investment, the output, what you're getting out of something, the seed or the plants that you reap after you've sown the seeds, it comes a point where you're putting too much effort and getting too little in return. It's an imbalance that is not in your favor. The one that's in your favor is you're not putting in much effort, but you're getting hella return. That's what everyone strives to. But the law of diminishing returns is opposite, it's flipped. And that's the thing we need to avoid. I watched a Joe Rogan podcast, and this was the one with Tim Paul, Vidya, and Jack Dorsey. And Jack Dorsey was talking about a concept called a cost-benefit analysis. I remember hearing it and I was like, what is that? So I googled it and I was like, right, I get it. But that's exactly it. It's like a graph, cost and benefit. What happens is, as the cost goes up, so should the benefits. It should be like a straight line gradient, right? But instead, that graph actually looks more like a bell-shaped curve. And I've talked about this before, I think, when I talked about option paralysis. When you have too many options, when you have too little options, you're unhappy. And when you have too many options, you're equally unhappy. And there's a right balance to be peak happiness, the right balance of options. It's very similar when you're discussing a cost-benefit analysis. at the right cost, your benefit will not be very high, but as the cost goes up, so should the benefit. It reaches a peak though, and then as the cost keeps going up, the benefit actually drops off. You know, in comics, the Incredible Hulk, he can get infinitely angry. Well, he gets infinitely stronger the more angry he gets. But in real life, nothing works like that. The more effort you put into stuff, eventually, now depending on the thing, this time frame, this period can be longer and shorter, but eventually you will suffer from the law of diminishing returns. In weight training, it's called overtraining. When you don't give your body enough time to recover. In your brain you think, yo, there's 7 days in a week, what if I go to the gym 3 times a day, every day for 7 days, every single day? I'm gonna be the biggest guy, I'm gonna be the most fit guy. No, nothing works like that. I think in your intentionalness, you being intentional, you being very conscious about things that are happening in your life, I think once that happens and you understand the concept of cost-benefit analysis, you understand the concept of the law of diminishing returns, what you can find, what you can start to do is you can see instances where you're diminishing your returns. So you're thinking, wow, why is this not working? Why is this going to shit? Why is this, like, I'm putting in so much effort into this, but I'm not getting this right. I feel like I'm studying so much, yet I'm not doing well in these tests. I feel like I'm working out so much, yet I'm not getting the gains I think I should be seeing. I feel like I'm working so hard at my job, yet I'm not getting the elevation in the workspace that I should be getting. Not getting the promotions, not getting the recognition, not getting anything, not getting no bonuses, nothing, commission, nothing. Cost benefit analysis, the law of diminishing returns could be a reason for that. And I think, like I said, once you're conscious about it, once you're intentional about it, you might be able to see it. And if it is, then I would obviously advise you to change it. What you need to do is you need to find that midpoint, that balance where the cost is at optimum, but the benefit is at the highest peak. You do that in the majority of aspects in your life, you will ball. You'll be A-OK. In fact, you'd be TT, top tier, top of the trumps.